Hey crew, it's your boy, Chris Rivera. It's so good to see you again. Welcome back to Break Trail. We've been talking about walking in the footsteps of Jesus. We actually have a lot of information about his life on earth, but we still don't know everything. Sometimes I still have questions about Jesus, like, I don't know, what was his favorite food? Or did he have a favorite joke? Or what did he do on his days off, you know? Like, I know he never sinned, but you ever think that Jesus like tripped or stubbed his toe like a little human mistake, you know? For some reason that makes me giggle. It makes him real to me. One time I accidentally hurt myself. It's a weird transition, but I was on a trampoline with some of our next door neighbors, and I remember it like it was yesterday. Late November 2002, little Chris was 6 years old, and I had finally saved up enough money to buy Super Smash Bros. Melee for the GameCube. And me and the homies were playing it like every day. I played Captain Falcon, that was my main. If you're into Smash, you know what that means. But I was so obsessed with this game that I thought if I jumped off of his roof onto his trampoline, I could do like a Falcon kick in real life, and I couldn't. Of course. I did successfully break my nose, though. That's why it's so crooked, in case you were wondering. But my friends freaked out, ran inside, and left me. And I had to walk all the way home, looking like I had just been in a street fight. And sometimes when we're hurt, people will try to show up for us, but not always in the way that you want or you need. Like if someone had shown up with a first aid kit that day, that would have been nice. But we all know that there's times when a fix isn't always as important as a friend. You know, sometimes when we're hurt, people want to give us advice, but we really just want someone to give us a call and listen as we talk it out. And sometimes the best medicine for a tough day is a friend or a family member who shows up with your favorite snack or just to remind you that they see you and they know you're hurting. And sometimes you just need someone who's willing to pick you up when you need to take a moment or to breathe or to get away from a tough situation. And have you ever had a moment like that when you were hurt or needed something and the people around you just didn't understand? Go ahead and pause the video and discuss a time with your group when you felt that your hurt or your pain was misunderstood. Sometimes when we're going through something painful, it feels like nobody understands because going through pain alone is lonely. And some of the pain in my story is actually really similar to some of your stories, actually. See, my parents got divorced a little after I turned 5 years old, and I spent most of my childhood resenting men in general. Like, I didn't get along with other guys, like I had really deep problems with authority, and I envied people who had good parents. You know, like it was, oh, how dare you have good parents, you know? And most days it felt like nobody really understood. And when life already hurts, people can add to that hurt when they fail to get to know our pain. And it's not because they don't want to help or they don't care. It's just hard to really understand what people are going through sometimes. And you know, it's never easy to experience pain, but it does help when we know that we're not alone. Once in a while, a tragedy occurs that unites people in their pain. Like when the world loses somebody who was seen as a trailblazer. And like we said last week, there's this hiking term called breaking trail. It's what you do when you encounter deep snow that's tough to navigate. And when that happens, one hiker usually goes ahead of their group and clears the way so that the other people can follow behind. It's so much easier to walk in the tracks of someone who has already broken the trail, someone who's already been there. And so we often call those people trailblazers, but we don't always use that term literally, right? Like sometimes a trailblazer is someone who's just forged a new and different kind of path. And it's important because Easter Sunday is coming soon, which means believers all over the world are looking forward to celebrating the day of Jesus' resurrection. But before we get to the resurrection, it's important to remember the pain that came first, the trail that Jesus walked to get there. And before Jesus' disciples knew that they had a reason to celebrate, they had to deal with the loss of Jesus. He was their trailblazer. He blazed new trails and showed them new ways of understanding what God is like. Nobody had ever taught or led or discipled anybody like Jesus had. And you know, when some people think about God, they don't think about him like that. They think about him as someone who's far away and not relatable. They see God as someone who might be able to solve their problems, but not somebody who can actually relate, not someone who's been there, not someone who gets the pain or the frustrating things. But Jesus shows us that that's not true. See, Jesus is fully God, but he's fully man. And so he can and does understand our pain. This is from the book of Hebrews, chapter 4, verses 14 through 15. Since then, we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast to our confession. For we don't have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, the one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, and yet without sin. You see, Jesus, our high priest, also can relate to us on the lowest level. He was tempted and he was acquainted with grief. And we know this because of his life, but also because of the events that led up to his death. So we're going to pause here. I want you to read a passage out of Matthew 27 and really focus in on what is happening here. Place yourself in the story as a witness to the events going on. Just really dig in. And then after y'all read, go ahead and discuss it. So pause, read, and then discuss Matthew 27, verses 27 through 44. You see, when Jesus was arrested and eventually killed, he felt every type of pain imaginable. Jesus was physically in pain. He had been beaten with fists and whips and other ancient weapons. He had nails driven through his hands and his feet, and when he was hanging on the cross, he couldn't breathe. Jesus also felt the pain of being insulted. You see, people questioned Jesus' identity and his authenticity. They took and gambled away his clothes to humiliate him. They mocked him and everything that he had lived for and fought for and taught. Jesus felt the pain of being betrayed. I mean, like we said last week, many of the people that Jesus loved walked away from him. Jesus was abandoned by people who had been close to him for over 3 years. And Jesus felt the pain of seeing people that he loved in pain. In the last moments before he took his last breath, Jesus saw his own mother in the crowd, who was unable to do anything except watch in horror. And Jesus felt the pain of being misunderstood too. See, Jesus was put to death by religious leaders, soldiers, and everyday people who saw him as a criminal, a blasphemer, and a violent, dangerous rebel. But in reality, Jesus was God himself on a mission to love and rescue each of them. And just in case you're sitting there and saying, well, Jesus never dealt with divorce. He never raised a teen. Like he never had a girlfriend or got broken up with. Listen, Jesus felt the pain of every sin on the cross. Anything that he didn't experience in his 3 years of ministry, he felt there. The full weight of pain for all people of all time. So no, God isn't incapable of understanding our pain. Jesus understands pain very well. And I know Easter is usually about celebrations and happiness, but before Easter Sunday came Good Friday, where Jesus suffered and died to blaze a trail, to make a way for us to be rescued from pain, and it comes from sin and death. You see, Easter is a reminder that we don't follow a God who can't understand when we're hurting. We follow a Savior who is right there with us when we're hurting because Jesus can understand. So today, what kind of pain are you feeling? Can you relate to any of the ways that Jesus was physically harmed by others? Maybe you're getting bullied, or maybe you have an illness or an injury or some kind of disability that causes you pain. Jesus knows physical pain. Or if you've ever felt the emotional pain of being left out or forgotten or betrayed or unwanted, Jesus has been there too. Or maybe you're struggling right now because of a sin. It feels like it has control of your life, this spiritual pain. And if that's you, remember, Jesus took on the weight of your spiritual pain so that you could have freedom in a new life. But you see, my pain doesn't look like your pain. Your experiences are different from mine, and sometimes it's easy just to point fingers or try to decide whose pain is the biggest, but nobody really wins when we operate that way. You know, earlier I read from Hebrews 4, and I'm going to read those 2 verses again, but I also want to add verse 16. Hebrews 4, 14 through 16 says this: "Since then we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession. We don't have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Sometimes the best thing in the middle of our toughest, most painful moments is just to be reminded that you're not alone. You can go to Jesus in confidence. You have access to the throne of grace. And so my question to you is, are you going to him? If so, great. And if not, why? Sometimes if we're being honest, the reason we don't cast our pain on the cross is because of our own pride. You see, growing up, I was the person who was never going to ask anyone for help. All I had was me, myself, and I. And maybe you don't run to Jesus because you don't trust him. You don't doubt his power and you don't doubt his existence. You just aren't convinced that he cares about somebody like you. And my question for you is, what else does he have to do? He gave his life for you, a person who definitely didn't deserve that kind of love. And so doesn't that make him trustworthy? Or maybe you don't go to the cross when you feel pain because you've never accepted that you had a role to play in Jesus' pain. 1 Peter 5:6-7 says this, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so at the proper time he may exalt you, casting all your anxieties on him because he cares for you." Casting our pain on the cross requires humility. It takes humility to admit that you can't fix yourself. It takes humility to remember how crazy it is that God even loves us in the first place. And it takes humility to remember that it's our fault, that Jesus knows about the pain of sin. You see, his disciples were following him at a distance. His mother and his family were watching in tears. The Pharisees were making fun of him. The Romans were literally beating him to death. The crowds were cheering him on. Pilate was there approving of everything. And we were the ones keeping him on the cross. Not the nails, but our sin. Spiritually, we were there. And John Stott puts it this way: before we can begin to see the cross as something done for us, leading to faith and worship, we have to see it as something done by us, leading to repentance. Indeed, only the man who is prepared to own his share in the guilt of the cross may claim his share in its grace. You see, Jesus understands pain because he experienced it in every way. He felt all the pain we've ever felt and all the pain that we deserve to feel. And he did it all to free us from the pain of sin forever. The very people who killed him. And now that's love. And I'm glad that he was willing to break the trail. I'm glad he was willing to pave a way for us to be free from sin and death forever. I'm glad he conquered the grave so that we wouldn't have to face it on our own. And I hope that hits you in a powerful way as you leave Cru tonight. He's with you and he understands. I'll see you later, Cru. Be safe going home.